Hello, my stamping friends. This is Renee Novak at blessedbycards.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and I'm here today to share with you another Make It Monday tutorial. Today, I'm going to share with you a little technique called faux tiling. And as you can see on here, I've got a little bit of color on each one of these tiles. So what you're going to need, in addition to your card base, your cardstock, and whatever stamp set you want to use to create your card, you're going to need a scoring tool. And you can either use the Stampin' Up! Scoring tool, or you can use your paper cutter, the scoring blade in the paper cutter. And so all you're going to do is first score your cardstock wherever you want it. And I took a piece of this white and I scored it every inch. Now, all the measurements and supplies that I use will be on my blog at blessedbycards.com in a free PDF download. So I went ahead and I took just a cardstock and I put it into 1 inch squares, and I scored it along 1 inch, and then I turned it and scored it all along 1 inch. So you have all these little tiles. And we turned them into faux tiles by adding color down in the corner of them before we create our card. And so I did create just a little template. I just cut a 4 square. I did a 2 inch by 2 inch. I scored it at 1 inch, and then I cut one of the squares out. And that's what I'm going to use as my template. And then what you do is you bring in your color. On here I use garden green, and for the sample I'm showing you now, I'm going to use Night of Navy. And so then you just come in and you just add some color in each one of those corners, and you can add as little or as much. You can go higher or lower, darker or lighter, but I just put these on each one of these little squares, and then as you can see, you're getting a little bit of a faux tiling effect, and it really is quite elegant. So that's very simple. Again, this is just a 2 inch by 2 inch that I just cut one of the 1 inch squares out, and I just did around the whole thing. And then once you have that done, you can go ahead and stamp what you want to stamp. I used the Thank You With All My Heart from the framed florets, and some of the greenery from Forever Fern on this one. And then I just added a little bling, mounted it on some garden green, and put it on a white cardstock. And I really love how this did turn out. So again, it's really very simple just to make that little template and get that color in the corners. Now, if you don't want to go to this much work, you can also do faux tiling on your cards by just scoring them and stamping your images. So again, I scored it 1 inch on all sides of the cardstock, and then I just stamped my images on top of the faux tiling. And some of the ink goes across it. You don't want to push real hard on your stamp when you're doing this, because you really do not want a lot of ink to be in there. You want it to look like a tile. So that's what gives it the faux tile look. So again, when you're stamping, don't press real hard, because you don't want the ink to seep down in those scoring lines. And then I just added a sympathy, and this one is the two-tone flowers, which two-tone flora bundle that's in the mini. And then I did another one, and this is the Starry Sky cardstock and the banner from Stylish Dies, and I used our big daisy background stamp. And again, you don't want to push too hard. You can use the Stamparatus so that you get everything inked, and I suggest you do that, but just don't push real hard, because you really don't want it to seep down into the tiles. Now this one I scored at every 1/2 inch. And this one, I scored at every 1 inch. So there you can kind of see the difference. So it's really personal preference. And then my last one for faux tiling is you can flip it on the other side, where the raised side of the tiling or scoring is up. And then you can just put ink, a soft ink, using a blender brush all over the whole thing, and then stamp your greetings. And again, this is the Forever Fern, and this is something fancy, bundle with the greetings, and this is the something fancy, a same thing here. And so that is another way that you can get faux tiling by just putting it all on, but put the raised sides up. You would put your ink on with a blender brush, or you could use a sponge or a dauber. So bring those back in. Again, this was the two-tone Flora, and this was the Daisy Garden background stamp that we have. And the last one that I brought in, using that technique where you just put a little faux ink to make the faux tile, you put an ink right there in the corners. So really, it's personal preference, whichever way you prefer. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy stamping with this technique and create something beautiful. So until next week, be blessed.